Hello, BWW community. I am here today to talk about the book of the week for week 4. And that book is by writer Nicole Petite, and it is Focused, Fearless, and Fighting. And we're going to hear from her, listen to her talk about the work, talk about all the things that she's experienced as a writer. And then we're going to get into this amazing book. And it's about parenting, and it's about young people, and it's about so many things that are important to us as we raise our kids and as we grow our families. So Nicole, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much. It's an honor for you to invite me on your show. I'm excited.
Oh, no problem. It's so great to have you. Tell us about your book. Well, first tell us about yourself and then tell us about your book.
Oh, goodness, girl. I don't think nobody has time as far as about me because I'm just all over the place. I call myself, I think the best words that I'm using in my upcoming book as well is I call myself a swan. If you notice metaphorically, swans, they're smooth sailing on top, they're graceful, they're soft, they seem to have everything, intact. But under the bottom, girl, they pattern like hell, girl, for life. So I consider myself that animal as a swan because I'm paddling like hell, to get to the other side and to make sure everything is afloat. But no one sees that, everybody thinks everything is graceful and I'm handling business, which I am, but it's tough. As a single, I call myself a single mother, MUVA. It's a difference. As a single mother, it's a lot going on with that, especially when you have 2 girls. So as far as who I am, I'm a mother, I'm a sister, I'm a friend, and I'm just trying to make sure every day that my children first get everything I need, get everything they need in life. So that's who I'm living for right now. Like it's all about them, has always been about them. And now they're at stages in their lives to where I think they need me the most, but they don't need me at the same time because they're older. So it's like I'm ready to be on 60. Like I wake up on 60 because I never know what that day is going to bring. So I'm all over the place.
Well, you're looking good all while you're doing it. Hey, I understand that. So it's a great thing.
Someone said, Black folk make stress look real good.
Oh my God. That's true.
That kind of rung a bell with me. We make stress look real good, but that's what it is.
Well, I know parenting is tough. I have a 13-year-old who's sometimes turning 3, sometimes turning 33, a boy. And this has been, being a parent has been the hardest thing that I've ever experienced. And so we also know that authoring a book is tough as well. So share with us what inspired you to write your book, to talk about parenting, to talk about raising your girls, and to really share some of those great tips that you put in this book to help us parents who are still learning how to parent.
Absolutely. Well, that's always a great question for me because I, like you, when I started writing the book, it was a matter of you should. Someone was telling me you should write a book because people follow you and your children and they want to know, how do you get your children to do this, or what inspires your children to be this way? People were asking. So it came to the bottom of it is when my oldest daughter, she would always have, friends or company over, her little friends, and they always wanted to talk to me. Like they would talk to me before they would talk to their own parents. And even when I told my oldest no from time to time, when she was in high school, when I would tell her no, they would be like, I wish my mom would tell me no. It would be interesting, the conversations that I would have with different children because they're seeking that type of attention from their parents and they weren't getting it.
Mm-hmm.
So when it came to some of the things that my children did or how they reacted, people wanted to know, how did you do that? So I said, you know what? I'm going to put it in the book.
Mm-hmm.
So I started putting in this book how I actually have raised my children, what has worked, what may not work, and to let people know just because it worked for me, it may not work for you, but you have to start somewhere, especially with trying to help educators in the classroom. I think, I don't know why I keep doing it. I think is where this book can be used more is if the parents will read this book so the children could be more prepared in the classroom. Because some of the things that I've noted in my book is We have to understand that children these days, especially with social media around, they have so many distractions. And one of the notes that I did put in my book is you have your 100%. You have 20% sex, 20% drugs, 20% violence, 20% fighting, and then the other 20% is education. That 80% is a huge distraction if you're expecting your child to get what they need when they go to the classroom with all of that distraction hitting them every day. Because all of that includes social media, because that's where they're getting it from. They're on their phones 24/7. So what do? I pay attention to my children. I try to remind them, just like rap music, this stuff is not real. We take 50 pictures before we post that one that we kind of like. Understand that your peers are doing the same thing. They're not as pretty as you think they are. They're not as fine as you think they are. And they're definitely not as smart as you think they are. You know, and at the end of the day, you know how they say, mind your business. Mind your business. So I tell my children, mind your business. If you focus on what you have going on in your life, then you can't be worried about what someone else is doing. You will continue to pursue what you're trying to do. For example, my youngest, she graduated with honors from high school recently, and she's preparing to go off to college. And of course, my oldest, she's preparing to go off to med school. You can't do that by focusing on other people. You have to focus on yourself at some point in your life to understand that regardless of what they're doing, they're not going to feed you. So that was a big factor in me writing the book and showing our children love. I know there are children from mentoring that has been called bitches, hoes, the N-words. They leave home and their parents slapping them across the head. So that's an added distraction. They have to go to school after that has taken place early in the morning. We tend to have a hard time loving our children. And I consider that to be a generational thing. I hate using that, but that's the best way to describe it, because my mama did it to me. I'm going to do it to my child because I turned out okay. It's just certain things we shouldn't do. My mom smoked, but I knew I didn't want to smoke, so I didn't. So we tend to, it's a condition. We tend to bring things forward to what our parents did to us, thinking that it's okay to do to our children, and it's really not. So we have to look at that. Are you feeding and pouring love into your children when they leave and go off to school that day? Are you letting them know that they're going to be great, or that they can be great, so they can go off to school with a positive attitude? Because when they sit on campus, they have to deal with the bullying and the violence and the sex education and all of this. Are you pushing them to mentally get through that? Because I also, with my mentoring now, I teach the kids, this is the most important thing here. Once they program your mind, it's called programming for a reason. Once they program your mind, the body will follow. So you have to start encouraging your children before they go to bed at night and when they wake up in the morning. I tell my children, we huddle up. I'm like football coach. When things don't go the way they should go with my children and they're sad, I'm that football coach. Get over here. No, I'm not that delicate mom. Oh, baby, no. Because the world is not going to do them that way. This world is harsh. So I'm teaching them now, baby girl, mama love you, but you're going to come over here and get this work. So when the world decides to treat you the same way, it won't, you're not trying to go off and commit suicide or do harm to yourself or others or go into depression, because you'll be familiar with it. So that's the way I've raised my children, with love, with discipline, and to let them know they can do whatever they need to do. And this is an ongoing thing every day. It's funny that we're having this conversation because last night somebody hit my daughter's car, my oldest daughter's car, and they drove off. Typically, she would throw her fit, and I'm like, girl, you have seen me go through hills, valleys, mountains, holes, sewers, and I don't act like that. Keep it moving. You can cry, but cry in the midst of. You can get mad, but get in the midst of. You got to keep it moving. This is a car. It'll be okay. Keep it moving, because my favorite 2 words are shit happens. And it does. You got to be ready for it. So I was proud of her for her attitude and how she handled things. Now, my 18-year-old, got to do a little bit more work on that.
It's what I love so much about what you're saying and what you write in your book is that you are validating for all of us parents who are doing things and not knowing if we're doing the right thing. And that is a very tough thing about parenting in this day and age, in my opinion, is that a lot of us aren't honest about what we're dealing with at home, how we're struggling with our kids, how we are struggling with our own lives. And when you are in the midst of this and you are struggling and you reach out to people who you think will give you some good advice, you end up getting a lot of the same, oh, we're good. My kid's
Yeah.
good. My kids doing this. They in the STEM program. They got all A's. And you're sitting here like, well, dang, I can barely get them to do
Right.
the same thing.
Right.
And
Right.
so, it becomes very tough because we're all trying to be behind the veil about parenting when we need to be out in the open talking about what tough love can give to a child, talking about building their confidence and talking about how do we put them on the right page. Because I'm with you, I grew up in public housing. My mother had 4 of us. We didn't have a lot. But I saw her through her ups and downs. She let me see that. It wasn't too much exposure, but she wanted me to see that she was human. And honestly, that taught me a lot. It was like I knew when she was having a hard day or a good day or a bad day, and my mother was always smiling, always happy. But when things started going downhill, she didn't go and hide it. I got to see her be human. And that
Exactly.
helped me as a parent. So bravo. I'm happy to hear that you are being so transparent in the fact that, yes, you're doing a fantastic job raising your girls, but they're not perfect. You're not
At all.
perfect. And
Not
that's the
even a little.
beauty. That's the beauty of it. So tell me
Yeah.
something. So when you write something like this, you're pouring out so much of yourself, so much of what you've learned. But at the end of writing any book, I believe you learn something more about yourself. What what is it that you learned through this process that helped you become an even better mother or even better friend or even better sister that was, the healing? Because writing is 50% for you, 50% for the reader.
Right.
What did you learn about yourself in writing this book?
What I did learn, I've learned to understand that eventually I'm gonna have to let go,
Mhm.
because I think that's been my biggest fear, and it makes me emotional thinking
I
about it.
know you about to make me cry, girl. Stop.
Oh God, especially now when, I'm struggling with this empty nester, stage that I'm going in, because I've always lived for them. And I'm knowing now that I have to let go. So I'm trying to learn to do that. Even after writing the book, I knew I was going to have to, I'm sorry. I knew I was going to have to let go.
Yeah.
And we're getting there. So I'm just, all I could do is, and I've told them this recently, because we have all been on such an emotional roller coaster since we've been back in under one roof together. And they want to go do this, and I'm telling them no, they can't do this, or they just want to get out the house, or they want to make decisions, and I'm telling them they can't. So we've all been we've had an emotional roller coaster with the tears and the anger, the three of us. And it has just come to the conclusion that I have to know and believe that everything that I have instilled in them, that they're going to make the best decisions. And even with me remembering this in the book, I've told myself that I've given them the resources.
Mhm.
If they do something stupid or crazy or whatever you want to call it, it won't be because they didn't know, because they have the resources. I gave them the knowledge. I taught them. I've shown them. So if anything comes about it, it definitely won't be because they didn't know. So what I learned about myself is I have to let go. I'm gonna have to, and just let them know that I'm here. And writing this book 2.5 years ago, I'm saying now we're at that point. I got to learn to let go, but I still treat them like they're delicate. And as mothers, we don't want anything to happen to our baby. I don't think it's enough of us like that. I know there are a lot of parents who, girl, they're so happy for their child to graduate high school. Oh, I can't wait for you to get out of my house. And, they have Mother's Day and be so happy to be Mother's Day. And the next day they have baccalaureate and be like, oh, you graduated, get out of my house. I'm like, that doesn't go together. How are you going to be proud to be a mother and then kick them out? That's trauma. Like, that's PTSD for these children. They're still children. They don't know. So I'm just making sure that mine still know that I'm here. I'm not throwing you to the wolves. You can come home. As a matter of fact, of course, when I get my home in Huntsville, it's still going to be at least 3 bedrooms so they can have their own space. Because I think children need to know that they have their own space and they have somewhere to call home all the time, regardless. So that was my learning lesson. I had to accept the fact that eventually I'm going to have to let go and live for me and not live for my children, because they have full lives ahead of them, and I gotta let it go.
And that's a beautiful thing. I mean, I know they are extremely proud of you. I'm extremely proud of you as a mother, as a sister, as a friend. I know how tough it is to make a decision to pour out so much of yourself into your work, but you did this not in a selfish way, but you did this for us, for other mothers, because we needed to read this. I thought it was so interesting that one of the first things that you tackle is teaching your kids about sex. And, you know, it's so interesting to me in this day and age, we've got kids dealing with, like you said, social media, you've got drug use, we've got suicide rates that are skyrocketing and all these other things. And now with what's happening in our world, you know, for myself, raising a young Black man, to know that now, you know, I've got to worry every time he goes out the door, you know, if something bad is going to happen to him. It really does. It's just it's amazing that, you know, in this, we don't talk a lot about sex
Yes, yes.
anymore. And,
And
and,
we
and I don't know, the music is so graphic and everything is so graphic, and yet there is so little talk about how to teach your child about sex. And so it was great that you put that up front. It was like, you know what, if you only gonna read the first 50 pages of my book, you're gonna learn about this thing.
you go, that's
And I
right. You
felt
gonna
that.
get it. Absolutely. And we still have the conversation in the house about sex. Funny again, me and my oldest and my youngest, because now it's like I need my oldest to back me up when I say things, because she had to learn through my words. And so it's almost like I need that confirmation. She right, Kennedy, she right. You better. So just the other day, and I hope this is not too obscene, we were talking about condoms. And so she took one out, and I was telling her how the tip works. And like, I'm this graphic. This is the type of mother I am. Because I told her 18, 19, 20-year-old boys, they don't know how to use protection. They're only putting it on because you're telling them to. They don't know what they're doing, you know. So you have to take care of you. After that 5 minutes of fame, you got to make sure you're good, you know.
You're funny, girl.
And I'm glad we're close enough to where she's like, okay, so I gave her a condom. She took it out, and she's like, oh, Mom, here's the tip.
Love it.
You know, I know people would be like, that relationship is so crazy. But I am that dramatic type of mom. You know, even, I can't remember if I put it in the book or not, but even when they got to the point of having menstruals, I was very graphic with that, because I needed them to understand what it was. I didn't want them to get it from their peers. And the reason why I have those conversations is because if I don't tell them, they're going to get it from someone else, and it's probably not going to be right. They know if I give it to them, it's going to be out of love and experience, and they're more prone to listen to me. And I haven't led them wrong this far. So it's easier for them to accept whatever I tell them and say, okay, you know, we have our what would Jesus do? We also have our what would my mama do? You know, right. And so you have to think about all of that. And I think they do. And I think it's not about making me angry. They don't want to disappoint me, and I don't want to disappoint them. So that's where our connection comes from. We have so much respect for each other, to where we want to make sure that whatever we're doing, we want to make sure we're keeping everybody happy. And that's about. So yeah, sex is definitely on conversation.
Well, that is beautiful. We can talk about motherhood literally all day. So I'm not going to keep you. I told you before we started that I'm trying to make sure that we don't have a 2-hour show here, because I promise you it could easily be that, talking about parenthood. Because like I said, as a parent, wow, it is the hardest job, but it is beautiful. It is wonderful. And you know, you want to give your kids the world. I mean, you literally, a good parent wants to give their kid the world. But you said something that's very meaningful, and that is that every parent is not a good parent. Every parent isn't thinking about it long term. You know, it's get out my house, and you know, you just need to go out and make a life. Kids need you. I mean, to this day, my father's 86 years old, and I promise you, I just love to hear his voice. I just need to hear his voice, you know. And so that's what's important, you know, to these kids. We have to remember that. But let's talk about publishing your book. And how did you publish? And what kind of advice would you give to other writers?
I was pretty much winging it. I did have, well, I take that back. I found a book coach. Her name is Candace. Love her to death. I had never met her, which was so interesting because she showed up at one of my Juneteenth celebration fundraisers, and I had never met her before. This was 3 years later. She surprised me. But I had the book coach, so she gave me recommendations as to who to call and who to go to, and her recommendations was Jira Publishing. So I went to them, and that experience was beautiful. If they even I can't call her my ex-mother-in-law. My mother-in-law, she passed away in the midst of me publishing the book. And that's the picture that you see in the front of the book. So I was like, okay, let me add this to her. I've been knowing this woman since I was 18. I was married for 20 years. So I put her in the book, and they was like, we got you. Don't worry about it. It was such a fast thing for them to do, but customer service was great. They did everything I needed them to do. They even gave me suggestions. It's even as far as the book cover. It was a beautiful experience. So when I finished with this one, I'm going right back to them. You know, they were very, so I really enjoyed them. It was a great experience.
That is excellent. Well, I will say this to you, Nicole. Thank you so much for writing this amazing book. Thank you so much for being a great mother. More people need to, celebrate great parenting, fathers and mothers all the time. Thank you for being a great mother, putting great kids out into the world. I always say my biggest goal is to make sure that my son is a good citizen of this world, and that's what I'm focused on doing. So we ask everyone, even whether you're on the BWW page, and we do invite you to become a member by going to the BWW Black Writers Workspace Facebook group and joining us if you are a writer, a consultant, or an avid reader. So you can find out about the books that we are promoting, and you can give us tips. We're just there to talk and connect as writers and avid readers. If you're not on the page, we do encourage you to go to her website, and I'll be sure to put that up. You want to give that website over?
Yes, my blog website is www.nicolepetite.com, or you can go to Amazon and pick up the book there. They're $10.95, or you can get it on Kindle for $9.99.
And Nicole is working on her second book. So get ready. Read this one. Read that one. Join the page. Let's talk about books. That's all we're here to do, and to promote great Black writers. So thank you so much, Nicole. You have been an inspiration to me this morning. I'm getting it. I'm doing it right, because I'm that crazy mom too. I'm singing and talking about condoms and doing all kinds of things. I am like, I'm all over the place. But I just want him to know, I want him to be prepared for the world. And so that's what it's all about. So thank you so much, and you have a beautiful, beautiful
You
day.
too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay.